Hey everyone, welcome back. We're talking running backs in Week 15 on FanDuel, DraftKings, and Yahoo. I'm Chris, your NFL writer from Occupy Fantasy, and we have a 9-game slate here on Sunday for Week 15 now. There are quite a few spots that certainly make sense to consider at running back, and we're going to go through them here for you real quick. First, we'd appreciate it if you consider subscribing to the channel. We just crossed 3,000 subscribers, and I know Brian's going to be running a giveaway, so you want to make sure that you're eligible for the giveaway. We would appreciate it if you like this video, and we'd also appreciate it if you consider leaving a comment. If you have any questions about running backs on this slate, that's the easiest place for us to get back to you. You can also consider joining our Discord, where we have Occupy staff and members discussing every single NFL DFS slate throughout the rest of the season and postseason. Certainly would like to see you in there as well. Just like the quarterback video that we had for you, we're going to start with the biggest favorites on the slate, the Arizona Cardinals, with the running back video. And for some reason, James Conner is just $6,400 here on DraftKings. A little bit more expensive, $8,000 over on FanDuel. He did return to practice on Friday, you see here in his DraftKings player card that has been reported by ESPN.com. So that is certainly a good sign because James Conner got hurt on the last play of the game on Monday Night Football, or second to last play of the game. And there was a real question whether or not he would be available to play. Sounds like he's going to be able to go now against the Lions. Conner with 65% of the team carries, 15% of the team targets over the last 3 weeks of play for Arizona. The Lions allow 135 rushing yards per game to their opponents this year. Conner with an incredible red zone role, with an incredible share of team touchdowns for the Cardinals. Little reason to see that changing here unless that injury that he suffered is limiting in any way. It does sound like Chase Edmonds may be able to return from injured reserve. Keep an eye out on that. They'll have to decide by 4 p.m. on Saturday if they're going to be activating Edmonds or not. If Edmonds is activated, that is going to be a pretty big ding to Conner's upside on this slate, and it may change whether or not we want to play him entirely, frankly. So just keep an eye out for that news on Saturday at 4 p.m. That's the deadline for elevating Chase Edmonds. There aren't really too many places to pay up at running back this week. In fact, the most expensive running back on the slate is just $7,800. It's Najee Harris with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's also $8,000 over on FanDuel, so he's expensive, but he's not super expensive. We could certainly get to him. He's got 76% of the team carries over the last 3 weeks for the Steelers, 14% of the targets, and this is a slightly below average rush defense from the Titans. Najee is clearly still like the primary asset that the Steelers want to get going in their offense other than Deontay Johnson in the passing game. So you can feel pretty comfortable rostering Najee this week. He's definitely going to get his touches. He's one of the rare guys on the slate this week where you can say that at this position. So there's certainly nothing wrong with going and paying for him this week. It's going to be a very popular move. A lot of players on FanDuel and DraftKings, according to our projections over at OccupyFantasy.com, will be using him heavily in tournament lineups this week. Returning to action after a few weeks off, our best value on the slate at running back says he's still on injured reserve here, but he's going to be activated to play, and he's going to have a huge role, according to head coach Robert Saleh of the New York Jets. Michael Carter, just $4,700 here on DraftKings, $5,900 over on FanDuel. His last healthy stretch where he saw a lot of work, it was like weeks 8 to 10 roughly. He had 60% of team carries, 20% of team targets from Jets quarterbacks. So expect Michael Carter to slide right back into that giant role. I mean, this team is so weak at the skill positions that they were targeting Braxton Berrios heavily last week. So you know that means that they're looking for other guys to feature when they're healthy and available. Michael Carter is going to be that guy here in Week 15. You should look to get him into your lineups. All lineup types at his anticipated workload. Could have 20 to 25 touches at this extremely low price. He's a great play. James Robinson with the Jaguars. What a slate that we have here. We're talking about playing Jets and Jaguars players. James Robinson's recent box score results have been pretty anemic. But we actually like the upside here a lot against the Houston Texans. For one thing, the Texans are allowing the most rushing yards per game to their opponents this year, and Robinson is in line to have basically all of that work here. Carlos Hyde has a concussion. He's going to miss the game. Urban Meyer is out at head coach, and it does sound like the play calling will hopefully emphasize James Robinson a little bit more at the running back position as a result. Clearly their best player at the position, and they should be using him pretty heavily in this matchup here as they look to wrap up their campaign on somewhat of a positive note after a pretty poor season that they've had there in Jacksonville. Some other running backs that I think are interesting this week. Ezekiel Elliott is still dealing with this knee injury. Tony Pollard will probably be back here against the Giants, but we do have Dallas favored. It's a relatively smaller slate now with just 9 games, and Ezekiel Elliott still has pretty healthy share of the touches in this backfield and has a phenomenal red zone role. So certainly have to consider him as an interesting tournament play. On the other side of the game, Saquon Barkley is not getting as much work as we wanted him to. Last week Devontae Booker had a pretty even split with him as far as touches are concerned, but still has a pretty high ceiling, and we know what he's capable of in this backfield when he gets the football. We'll see if he's able to do a little bit more against the Cowboys in this divisional matchup. Cordero Patterson, always going to be an interesting play. Now an even more interesting play that this slate has gotten a little tighter. $6,900 on DraftKings, $7,000 over on FanDuel. Cordero Patterson, a.k.a. Scordero, has over 50% of the team carries in the last 3 weeks and 13% of the team targets. Facing the San Francisco 49ers, it'll probably be important for the Falcons to keep Patterson heavily involved if they want to keep pace with the Niners in this matchup. Joe Mixon with the Bengals. We talked about Joe Burrow in our quarterback video. Hasn't had a phenomenal game in a little while, but still playing a lot, still getting the majority of the backfield touches, in a good spot there. Devonta Freeman will be even better without Lamar Jackson, because although Tyler Huntley is mobile, he's not as mobile as Lamar Jackson, and Freeman's role has actually been growing in this backfield. Myles Gaskin has been reinstated from the COVID-19 inactive list, hasn't been able to practice because he's been on that list, so taking a little bit of a leap of faith. Going to assume he resumes his RB1 role in that Dolphins backfield here, though, in Week 15. That's going to do it here for this position. There are a lot of good plays on the board at running back, but do think it's pretty heavily concentrated at the top here. The James Conner, Najee Harris, and Michael Carter plays feel like the best ones on the board. Don't ignore James Robinson either. Do think he'll be one of the most popular plays on this slate against the Texans defense in Week 15. That's going to do it for this video. Keep an eye out for the daily plug that will be published at OccupyFantasy.com by 8 p.m. on Friday. We'll have not just our favorite running back plays in there, but also our favorite plays at every other position. We'll also give you some advice on how to deploy those players effectively in the type of contest that you choose to play. Whether those are low-risk contests or high-risk contests, it's important to understand the dynamic of the contest you're playing before you set your lineup. It's the most important part of the plug. You certainly don't want to miss it. Once again, for Occupy, I am Chris. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll talk to you soon.